friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing a little trip back down memory lane. I'm going to go back, and I have watched my plans for 2023 video that I posted back in December of 2022. I wanted to go back and see where I'm at with the goals that I set for myself with this year, what has changed, what's on track, and what's coming in the second half of 2023. It is absolutely crazy to me that we are halfway through 2023 already. I just cannot believe how fast these years are starting to go. But let's check in and see how I've been doing with my goals that I set back in December. So the first series that I talked about was this one in my video, and Lord of the Rings. So this is one that I feel like I definitely have wanted to read so that I can say that I've read it, because the films that I grew up on meant so much to me and were such a huge gateway for me into the fantasy genre. I know that the writing style of these is quite possibly going to be not something that jives particularly well with me. I have, as I mentioned before, started the first book several times, got to Tom Bombadil every time, and quit. I'd say the likelihood of me reading the entire trilogy in the year of 2023 is incredibly low. I may try to dip into the Fellowship this year. We'll see. I might take it very slow. Maybe I'll do one book a year, and if I get to more than that, great. But I would say for the time being, this is one that I am only going to start if I'm in the right headspace for it, because I do want to give it the attention and respect that it deserves. I did pick up myself a nice copy of The Hobbit because I turned 32 this year, and I thought, you know what, maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. I haven't read The Hobbit yet either. This is much shorter, and if I'm ever going to read this, it's going to be on my 32nd year, because that just, I mean, when else would you read it? I think what we're going to do is I'm going to commit to reading The Hobbit this year, because I do really want to read this and experience The Hobbit as it is in the book, because goodness sakes, it can't be worse than the films. I'm not going to belabor this. There were a few things about the films that I did enjoy, but overall, I'm excited to read the book. We'll just leave it at that. Next up, I mentioned Jade City, and that I was trying to kind of remove myself from the hype a little bit and give myself some space so that I could come back to it and have my own experience with it, since it was literally all over BookTube, which was awesome, but I just needed a little bit of time. And I think I've had that, and I'm really excited. So I currently have a buddy read of Jade City planned for the end of 2023 with my friends Nuclear Katie, who does not have a channel, but you've seen her around if you're around my channel or Alan's channel. I will also be buddy reading this with Ty the Reader Guy, who has a brand new YouTube channel that you should definitely check out. I put it down in the description box below. And we're just gonna try it, because this is a book that I think all three of us have figured out is gonna be very much in our wheelhouse of interest. And I'm very excited. I feel like I've had the amount of time that I wanted to take a step away from it and just let the hype kind of do its own thing. And I'm now at a point where I feel like I'm really ready to read this trilogy. I am so excited. I know that I'm gonna love this. Next up, I mentioned the Five Warrior Angels trilogy by Brian Lee Durfee, who, if you haven't seen his channel, I will link that down below as well. And if you don't know that it's the best YouTube channel on the internet, you should go watch some of his videos. He's a great guy, and I read the prologue back in last year and really loved it. So this, honestly, I haven't started because it is chunk, which doesn't scare me. Obviously, I read chunks all the time, but I think committing to a very chunky trilogy is just something that I haven't been ready for this year. This is one that is still on my docket for the end of 23. And I am excited about it. That's one of the problems I'm having, you guys, is that there's too many books. And I know we say this all the time on my channel, right? Like, there's just too many books, and they're so good, and I need to read all of them, and I need to clone myself about 4 times so that I can actually read everything. Moving right along, the next series was the Echo Saga by Philip C. Quaintrell. Now, I have so much respect for Philip. I've gotten a chance to chat with him a little bit on Twitter, and this is another series that I just haven't been ready to commit to yet. I'm very excited to read this. I know that it has very, very good characters, classic fantasy vibe, modernized, as we like to say. So it honestly has just become an issue for a lot of these series where I just haven't hit the right moment to start them. And to me, that's a really big deal. And I know a lot of people schedule their TBRs for months and months in advance. I can't do that because I start to feel restricted and then I don't enjoy what I'm reading. And I would much rather come into these series in the right moment so that I have the best possible experience with them. This one is definitely still on the docket. One of the problems with this one is, and I think I'm going to only commit to reading the first book here in 2023, is that this one does start a little bit longer series. So I'm just kind of keeping that in mind so that when I do start it, I'm at a good point to kind of continue on in a series. And I want to finish up some of the other series that I have going right now. Next up, we have The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. And I have read, as you know, The Blade Itself and Before They Are Hanged, and I am about halfway through The Last Argument of Kings. So I will be finishing this trilogy here in June, which feels amazing, you guys. I'm so glad to be able to say that I finally read this. This has been one that's been on my TBR for ages. It's been a ride. I'm not going to spoil my third and final vlog, which I will hopefully be posting in July once it's done. I've had a roller coaster with this trilogy, and I still don't know exactly how I'm going to end up with my thoughts on it at the end of book 3, but I do want to say that I'm very excited to say that I have finished, at the time that this video goes up, most likely, the First Law trilogy. And that's another one that I can say complete on my checklist of fantasy series, which feels amazing because anytime you can finish a series, that is just the best feeling. Now I realize there are books in the First Law universe after the first 3. I'll get there. But it feels really good to finally be able to put that one aside and say that I've read it. So, I know I've been getting some teasing for this one, because here we are, and this is Gardens of the Moon, and I still haven't started it. And to be honest, it's mostly just because I knew that this one would keep. There's been so many other things that I've committed to reading that I wanted to finish first. I knew this one wasn't going anywhere, and I was saving it for a moment where it felt like I needed a comfort read, and I haven't really gotten to that point yet just because I've been so busy and things have been so crazy. But this one has an official buddy read date set now, which is exciting. I wanted to put a little bit of space too between me and the massive Malazan read-along that I think is still mostly going. I will be buddy reading this with, once again, my friends Nuclear Katie, Ty the Reader Guy, channel down below, and my best friend Sarah from Sparrow Springs Art. Also linked down below. She has an amazing art channel. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. But we are all going to start Malazan Gardens of the Moon on July 3rd. This will be a reread for me and a first time completely through read for the other 3 in the buddy read. I am super excited to delve back into this, as I've said a million times in other videos, and we finally have a date set for that. So I will be officially starting this one in July and finishing in July. I'm not entirely sure. We've left it pretty nebulous in terms of how the buddy read is going to go. Malazan is one of those series where I don't want to set myself really strong boundaries in terms of how fast I need to read it, because that's just not going to work for me. So it feels great. I'm very excited to read this finally, and I'm actually putting it on the calendar and making time for it this next month, and I'm very excited about that. All right, next up I talked about Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This is book 1 in his Dandelion Dynasty series, which is incredibly beloved by so many people that I know. I do know people that it didn't completely jive with also. And I have no idea which way I'm going to land on it. And it's been one that I've been really excited about, but I think I'm at a point at this very moment where this might be a little bit heavy for me in terms of just how much brain power it's going to take to go through this series. So I'm kind of at a point right now where I feel like this one probably won't happen in the rest of 2023. I'm not totally throwing that out of possibility. You never know. With mood reading, I might just decide one day, I've had it, I'm picking it up. But also I'm committing to 4 books with this series. And that's like with any of these series. It's not just reading the first book. Once I've read the first book, to some degree, I'm kind of having to, okay, am I ready to commit to a longer series? Am I at a point where I can handle that? Because I don't want to spread out the books too much. And that's honestly one of the biggest things that I run into with these, is that if I start a series, I don't want it to be 6 months to a year before I jump into the second or third book, because then I'm going to have a harder time enjoying the story as a whole. And the last book that I brought up in that video was Shogun, which I had a blast reading this through the months of January to March. I buddy read it with Joanna from Joanna Reads, Alex from Tall Guy Reads, and Alan from Library of Alexandria, and quite a few other people that joined us, and we had so much fun. I will link our first discussion about Shogun up in the cards so you guys can go check that out if you want to. This was a really fun book. It was incredible. I still haven't done a dedicated review for it on my channel, but I am so glad that I read this. It was an incredible piece of fiction and really kind of reintroduced me to my love of third-person omniscient storytelling, and that was really worth it by itself, honestly, regardless of how good the book was. This one I checked off the list, so at least I had a couple that I've finished. I'm getting there, guys. I'm doing something. One book or series rather, that I didn't mention in that video that I've had on my list for ages was the Long Price Quartet, and that is another one that I have started. I do plan on finishing the last 2 books in July or August, and then I will be able to checkbox The Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham, which has also been on my list for a ridiculously long time. So I do feel like I'm making good progress with the series that I'm in, and just trying to be really careful that I don't start too many big series at once. So I'm trying to be really cautious and thoughtful about, okay, I'm ready to commit to this series right now. This year, one of my big goals was to read much more indie and self-published fantasy books, and I feel really good about where I'm at with that. Out of the 42 books I've read as of this moment, probably at least 1 more or 2 more by the time this video goes up, I have read 18 self-published fantasy books and have had a blast. And of course, being in the self-published fantasy blog off, Spiffbo, I'll link, if you don't know what that is, I'll link up my explanation video up there. There's so many that I want to get to that are part of this year's competition with my own book, Phased. And I've been having really a lot of fun adding those to my TBR and jumping into a few of them as I get time. I'm really happy with how far I've gotten in that endeavor, and I plan on reading quite a few more of them before the end of 2023. Last but not least, I talked a little bit about the debut episode of my show Imposter Syndrome, which is a informal writer's room show that happens every month here on my channel, and it basically brings 2 or 3 authors besides me into a space where we can talk about topics in writing fantasy. We are on episode 7 finished, which is crazy, and I just feel so incredibly blessed and grateful for all of the authors who have been part of the show already. I'll link the playlist up here so you guys can go watch all of the episodes. We have had some incredible conversations about writing combat, about imposter syndrome, about writing women in fantasy, about writing young protagonists, about world building. That's been a really fun addition to my channel, and I hope you guys have all enjoyed watching Imposter Syndrome. And yeah, that's, I think, pretty much everything I had talked about in the planning for 2023 video. But it's been a great year so far. I'm very excited to post my best of 2023 so far video in the next couple of weeks, and I would love to know what you guys' favorite read of 2023 has been. What have you really enjoyed? How have your goals been going? Have they changed? Have they stayed pretty on track? Either way, I hope you're reading books that you absolutely love, having a great week, and I will see you in the next video.